Hi, my name is Izzy, and today I'll be talking with Rachael McDiarmid, publisher consultant, about her experience with Clockify and working as a business and marketing consultant while also teaching a full course at the University of Sydney. What can you say about who you are for people who've never heard of you before, and how would you describe yourself professionally and personally?
Okay. Okay. Well, I've been in the publishing industry for over 3 decades. And I started in mainly sort of product and marketing roles and then sort of went to management. And I started my own business 9 years ago now. And I specialize in outsourcing, consulting, and coaching now with authors. But it's mainly book publishers and distributors that I work with. But I work globally, so it's not just in Australia. I have
Oh, that's
clients
cool.
from around the world. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's fun. It's fun. I've been in the
it
industry for
sounds.
so long, and we've built up such knowledge. It's it's nice having lots of different clients and doing lots of different work. I joke that I have the most non-disclosure agreements in the country because of what I do. And I also teach book marketing and sales at the University of Sydney, so I wear lots of hats. It's fun.
I can imagine. But I want to follow up on something that you mentioned, coaching. How does that work in context to publishing, or in context
Well,
to how
for
you
me,
work?
yeah, but because I cover everything once the book's actually been done, and these days, particularly with marketing, digital marketing, that authors, there are authors that are really savvy and authors that aren't, and they need help with websites and social media, and
That makes
even things
sense.
like newsletters and advertising. So I don't have the time to do the work myself anymore for those
Mhm.
sorts of clients. So I coach them and train them to do what they need to do. So yeah, for the big publishers and distributors that I work with, the different ball game. But for the authors these days and
Mhm.
micro presses, they need just a helping hand.
Fascinating.
Mm,
But yeah, how do you? I have a question, specifically because you mentioned not necessarily like newsletters or stuff like that,
mm,
like the change in
mm.
publishing. How has that
Yeah,
affected your
yeah.
business? Because 30 years ago, I assume publishing was very traditional.
It was very different, yeah. And I've
Yep,
ridden that wave, that whole, move across from print to
yeah,
digital,
exactly.
to the
Thank you.
digital
Print
world.
to
I've
digital.
sold,
Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, sold platforms and content. You look at it a different way. So you look at it in terms of content. Um,
Hmm.
and so I actually work with one of the largest organizations in that space and on their
Hmm.
ebook platform. So they're one of my clients. And so I've been in the ebook space for over 20 years. Um, so I got in quite early. But audio, platforms, apps, everything, all different ways to sell a book.
True. That must have been such a drastic shift from something that
Yeah.
you've gotten used to, and then all of a sudden everything it changes very
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah, it has. But also the cost of doing things, the whole supply chain for books, just and we don't have economies of scale in Australia. So, the freight and shipping charges of books versus, a digital
Huh.
workflow. But the whole digital space has gone insane. Like it's
Can't
just,
imagine. Yeah.
you used to have catalogs and you used to mail out catalogs and you used to, before the internet, you could price books whatever you wanted to when you were distributing them, but not now. Everyone's got access to information, and everyone wants the book yesterday.
That
It's
makes
a very
sense.
different world. I think it's customer expectations, but also,
Hmm.
the role that social media play. It's very different space, very different. Marketing books now as opposed to 30 years ago is, yeah, there's still some fundamentals in terms of customer service
Hmm.
and some of the supply chain work, but in terms of marketing, yeah, it's quite different.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about how social media works now, specifically with marketing books and everything else, because it is social media is very fast, very everyone
Mm.
expects everything now, now, now. So
Yeah, and yeah,
yeah, how does that
and when it
work?
comes into books, because I actually do social media coaching and I teach and I do
Oh,
workshops and stuff like that, and I find that it's not the answer to everything, and
hmm.
books are competing with all other types of entertainment for someone's dollar and someone's time.
I
So
can
social
imagine.
media is good at creating awareness, but it
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily mean they're going to buy it. So
Mhm.
it's sort of like, and you have to trigger multiple times,
Mhm.
have that in front of the potential customer to before you actually get that sale. But I've seen some wonderful engagement. What I do love about social media is the way some of the authors have adapted to it, and they are so good at engaging with their readers directly. Because in the past they didn't have access to their readers directly. They might have done some events and things like that, but these days they get to know their readers, and their readers that are going to read every single book by that author. There's lovely engagement. I mean,
That's
Twitter can
fantastic.
be toxic, but I
Yeah,
find that the writing
absolutely. But
Twitter, yeah, well, X, writing Twitter, I
well,
find
yeah.
a very nice community. Like, I find that the writers are really supportive of each other.
I'm curious because you mentioning like writing Twitter. What do you think about, I believe it's called Book Talk on TikTok, where it's all about
Do you
writers,
know,
books, and everything.
it's so funny. I purposely have not gone down that book talk route because I swear I will never come out. But I see so much content in other ways. And of course, I get my students to write on book talk, and I talk about book talk. And again,
Mhm.
it's been amazing for book sales, and
I
also
could
for
imagine, yeah.
retailers. It's driven people into bookshops because they can't just hold up their iPad and put the the cover,
Yeah,
the book that they're reading. They have to show the physical book. They have to have reactions to it.
I
I think
can't.
it's been such a
Yeah,
fabulous thing, particularly for YA, and
that's
romance and a few others.
yeah, that's fantastic. I can't even count how many times I've been scrolling and I somehow end up down the book talk rabbit hole, and then I find a book that I haven't heard of in a couple of years and I remember,
Mm,
or a new book, and
mm,
then I,
yeah.
let's just say my shelves could use a little cleaning and a reorganization.
Yeah. And it has reinvigorated the backlist. I mean, Simon and Schuster in particular, they've got a lot of the Colleen Hoovers and things like that. Queen of Book Talk, and it just for years you had nothing on these titles or just general sales, and suddenly boom.
Yeah, I could.
It yeah, didn't matter
It's
if it was a new
fascinating.
release or an old release. It was great. It was great.
It's
So
absolutely fascinating to me just
yeah,
how different everything is and how quickly it can change. Um,
yeah.
but Task, you have more than 30 years of experience from sales to marketing to
Mm,
publishing and distribution. Now you even run a business to help those who can
mm,
benefit from
mm,
your extensive knowledge. When did
mm.
you realize that a business like yours was just what the publishing industry needed?
Oh, it was really interesting. I actually have to thank at the time a wonderful, wonderful man who was the managing director of one of the big companies here. I'd been in publisher relations by that stage, and he actually said to me, because I think when you work to a very senior level, there's no other similar jobs around in the industry because you have to
Hmm.
come back down to come back up again.
Makes sense.
And I said to him, I don't know what to do. Like, I've got some ideas, and he said to me, "You're the most networked person in the industry." Well, at the time I was, because I worked for one of their largest accounts. Why don't you make your network work for you? And that was the best advice I ever got, because
Hmm.
I've got such huge experience. And then I could see that publishers were laying off staff or restructuring, or if someone left, they weren't replaced. And
Hmm.
so I felt like outsourcing, like, I don't need to be managed. I know what needs to be done. I'm highly skilled.
Makes sense.
And
Yeah.
so for clients, it's good they can pack, oh, here's 6 hours of work I can give you. I'm not technically on their books because I'm a consultant or a contractor.
Hmm.
But that you get the work done. I find one of the best things about providing outsourcing is that I'm not caught up in all of those meetings for strategies or HR things or internal things. Like, I just do the work, and I think that works really well. And I just get on with it. So and I have to adapt to every publisher or distributor's style.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's not what I would do, but they're the client, so I do what they need to
Hmm.
do. But yeah, it's been something that is unique in the industry,
It
I think.
definitely sounds like it. But you
Yeah.
mentioned something now that's piqued my interest. When you said adapting to a style of publishing, how do you mean by that? And like, what do you mean by
It's
like
more
your
like
client?
it's more like different brand. It's more like branding,
Uh-huh.
the way people talk in their communications. Who
Mm-hmm.
uses humor, who doesn't. Particularly when I'm doing the socials for one of my clients, can I put in humor or can I not? Can I
That makes
create
sense.
a persona in social media? Those ones that are very particular versus those that are just happy to have the work done. And also different types of books. There's quite a big difference from a university press to a specialist or a niche
Mm-hmm.
publisher. Has a particular you publishing program that they work to. So I
That
have
makes
to
sense.
always adapt to their voice, their style. I can make suggestions, but generally it's I have to know what they're so if I present a campaign to them, it's got to look like
Mm-hmm.
what they would do. So yeah,
Mm-hmm. So,
it's engaging.
yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong. This involves a lot of research, correct? Into who you're working with and publishing with and
Um,
so on.
no. Generally, I've not because I've been in industry for so long and I've been in publisher
Huh.
relations for a long time. I
Huh.
generally know what I'm dealing with. But there are
That's
certain
great.
things when I'm starting with a new client that they will guide me through, and their systems might be different, or I can see what's being done. There's usually for the big corporates, there's a style, and they're very possessive of their brand.
I can
So yeah,
imagine. Yeah.
managing that. It's different for the when you're working for a multinational versus when you're working for a smaller press,
That makes
or
sense.
even a
Yeah.
university press, and who they're reporting to, who their dotted lines are. So yeah,
Hmm.
you've just got to be able to. And the thing is, they're using outsourcing for a reason. So
Hmm.
you've got to be quick. You can't faff about. You've got to be able to take one look at what they do, how they do it,
Hmm.
and be able to run with that. Don't change it up straight away. Get to run
That's
with it, and then sort of bring in some new things if they're ready for it. Sometimes they're not
that's
ready for it. I can't.
that's fascinating. It sounds like the whole publishing industry is a constantly changing
Yeah, yeah,
behemoth, so to say. But
it is.
um, what a fantastic introduction. Um, so I'm curious, what's the profile of the clients you serve? Like, how would you describe your services more in depth to that?
Well, so what I would normally do is that because I cover everything from, like a micro press or authors up through to big distributors,
Hmm.
um, for me, it doesn't matter whether they're a big multinational or a small press.
Hmm.
I guess I had a wonderful mentor. He was the president of a company called Baker and Taylor, and he said to me that every publisher has its own story, and once you know that story, you know how to work with them. So for when I'm working with publishers in particular, um, they will usually know what my skill set is, and if I'm doing regular outsourced work, I cover such a huge sort of a variety of areas, or if I'm doing a project, in that case I have parameters to work with, so they basically know my skill set,
Hmm.
and then we sort of discuss what they need me to do on an ongoing basis. And often they'll start me on something and then they start throwing more things at me. So it might be, they might be working with me on social media campaigns and ad campaigns, and then suddenly they're asking me to do publicity campaigns. So, I have to be ready to do all sorts of marketing functions. There's a few I don't do, like I don't do events
Hmm.
generally. I can coordinate, but I don't do that. And there's certain things in the industry like selling rights and stuff like that that I don't do. So yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, fascinating. I know I know I'm like fascinating, but I don't know anything about the publishing industry, so this is quite new and
I
interesting to
think
me.
publishers would love this platform that you have. Like for when they have consultants or contractors or casual staff or anything. I just think it's brilliant.
That's great. But you cover a wide range of services, and you know exactly how to put yourself into your client's shoes, exactly what they need and what they're looking for. What's the most satisfying part of what you do, and why would it be?
I guess it's a couple of things. I think it's great when you get the feedback from like a head of an organization, but also the authors, because it's their work that you're marketing and promoting and having a good experience with them. And the authors can be tricky, but generally a happy author is a good thing. So I do like that. And I do like the relationships that I build up with others in the organizations that I work with. Like, you know, there's some great teams out there. There's some really knowledgeable people. And I do love it when someone's got a sense of humor and you really feel it when you're communicating with them, whether it's online or in email. Like that makes it rewarding, because otherwise it'd be too isolating to do what I do.
I can imagine, yeah. Do you have, let's say, a favorite author or a recurring author, a set of clients that you go back to, or that come looking for your services? No naming any names.
I have a favorite. I mean, not on something like this, but you know, I do, because I wouldn't work with someone who didn't treat me right anyway. Like, I mean, it's my power, it's my business. Yeah. So you know, there are some things that are more difficult, but I don't think I necessarily have, you know, I have favorites in different things. So and different people are different, but I love the variety. My brain is wired that way, to take on lots and lots and lots of things. So yeah. And the thing is, if I found someone that was rude or obnoxious, and you do get authors that sometimes like that, you just got to work your magic and your charm, and sometimes it doesn't work out, but generally, you know, yeah, there's, you know, I can choose my clients, and if they're particularly difficult, I can always walk away, but I haven't had that. So that's good. I'm sure there's stories, you know, there will be one sometime, but yeah, personality driven, or, you know, yeah.
Apologies, but it seems like charisma is like the number one thing to have while working publishing or anything like this. I'm curious, with that charisma, have you worked with a team, or do you currently work with a team
that's charismatic?
Or, well, not necessarily charismatic, but, you know, put your charisma into
I think there's a lot of extroverts. There's a lot of extroverts in the industry. But because I mainly work, when I'm doing my outsourcing, I'm not in mass market publishing. So I'm in, you know, university press publishing, or I'm in trade publishing, but at a smaller level. So it's not like working for the big organizations, you know, with big brand authors. I have authors who are award-winning, who are consistent, who are on the event circuit. I love an author that's on the circuit, because they have a brand and they are so good to work with. So yeah, so it's not like the big, you know, Stephen Kings of the world. It's lots of others, you know, particularly in nonfiction. I do a lot of work in scholarly and nonfiction. But when I'm consulting, I cover all areas when I'm consulting and coaching.
I love myself some nonfiction. Such fascinating stories that come out of it. But something that I'm curious about, I know I mentioned this earlier, what with the industry changing from what it was before and versus what it is now. But like, we, as like everyone in the workforce, just in general, are noticing witnessing profound changes in how we work, from being remote and hybrid to Chat GPT becoming more and more used, and AI, you know, writing prompts with AI and all of that, and layoffs and so on and so forth. What would you say are the biggest challenges to your niche today as a result of these changes? And also, what do you think about AI? That's what I'm most curious about, especially with ChatGPT.
Yeah, I know. like I actually ask my students how many, because the ones that are working in booksellers or, in bookshops or with in the industry, who was using AI, and, the savvy ones are really adopting it early as a time-saving device. I'm also listening to the authors who are very, very concerned on the broader industry about the challenges of it and how can it, it's not regulated. They're not going to, the threats to income. So, and as part of me, I mean, I'm at the end, sort of like end of my career in terms of, that whether or not I really go after AI and embrace it and then train other people, or whether I just let the younger generation do that. But I find that AI is a big thing, but also in our industry, the cost of book distribution is another one. Paper costs. There's lots of different issues that are affecting what happens, and there's just so much content being produced. How do you rise above it? So, it's like self-publishing. I don't think publishers realize how much self-publishing really, like, there are some markets where self-publishers are just dominating, but then they're selling directly or they're selling to things, and publishers wouldn't know because they don't see it on the industry reports. But I think analytics are becoming really, a lot more important over time, to sort of help navigate your strategy, in terms of your marketing, your sales, and your distribution. So there's some really good things there, but not quite sure how we're, about the AI yet. I think I need to read a lot more to see how I'm going to use it. But platforms and people that I've worked with have been using it for a while behind the scenes anyway. Yeah, particularly one of the companies I work with is a big tech company. So they have it integrated into lots of their products and services. So
that's fascinating. Yeah, and I've heard of ChatGPT as a sort of write a prompt, see what it comes up as a sort of jokey thing, which actually leads me to a question that I have. Fiction writing websites like AO3 or like fanfiction.net or fictionwriting.net have been around for time immemorial. How has let's say self-publishing or fiction writing websites like the ones I mentioned affected your work and how it affects in general? Oh, then nothing really.
No, not for what I do. So but I, apart from every now and then actually really enjoying a story for fan fiction where they take it, just extending. It's just, if you can encourage people to read, that's a really good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and if writers can get all the prompts that they need to help build a story, and being able to sell it into, or either have it placed with an agent or get it into a publisher, that's important.
Yeah,
so the problem is they hardly make any money out of it. Like, that's the big thing about our industry. What's a bestseller? What are the figures? Particularly in Australia, we're a relatively small market, so.
Fascinating. I never really thought of that, considering land mass. You'd think there would be more people living in Australia, we need more.
And it costs a lot to send a book, to send one book. Sometimes it's half the price of the book to send it across from Sydney to Perth, so
wow, that is
costs. Supply chain costs.
That is
really important. Like, there are you have to have economies of scale, you have to have volume.
Wow, yeah. I have no follow-up to that. That is like I was aware of the costs, like internationally, how expensive that was, but just locally, but just like through the country, I didn't expect it to be like expensive.
No. UK and US wholesalers have been able to get books into our market cheaper than what we can do it from, one state to another state. It's just volume.
Seriously. I come from Canada, so in Canada it's a lot easier to get, let's say, from one province to another, a book that from Toronto to Alberta or something like that, because from what I remember, the cost wasn't that much.
Yeah.
But to hear this and how expensive it really is. Goodness.
And of course everyone wants their books to be sent to them for free. You buy online and you want your book, but no, there has to be a postage charge or a postage recovery. It just, it's, otherwise people go out of business. So,
but what does your typical workday look like? Like, do you use any particular method to stay productive throughout the day? And like, how does that help you if you do?
Because I've got a full client list. So normally at the start of the week, I'll plan out my hours and some of the clients that I have campaigns running for. So I have to make sure that I've allotted the right time through the week, but also keep to their budget. I have to always keep to their time allocation as well as their monetary.
Makes sense.
And so this is where Clockify has been great in that I essentially log on, log off, and by projects as well. So I'll do a batch of, an hour or two for a client, take a walk, come back, work another hour, or so I switch between them. But if something comes up really quickly, I have 14 email addresses, and I have if something is really urgent for somebody, I stop what I'm doing and go to that. So I have to manage my time really quickly and really well. But they expect me to be able to move and not sit on something. So I can actually see all my addresses in my Mac mail, which is good and bad. Sometimes I switch that off and I often put my phone on do not disturb, particularly when I'm working on a campaign, because I just need to concentrate on that campaign. If I'm doing strategy or documents or different things. So I have all different functions and requirements from my clients. So I just have to work in with publication dates and event dates, and I'm promoting, not necessarily setting up. And then when I'm teaching on top of that, I also have to make sure that my notes are all up to date, that I've refreshed the material for my students, because it's book marketing and sales that I teach. So that's first semester. So that's the first, few months of the year are my busiest. So, but it's a full week. And then sometimes on the weekends I might need to do things. But it depends. If there's something urgent, publicity wise, or particularly from the media, or something that's a problem on someone's website, or something's happened and we need to share it on the socials. There's certain, you can't have the delays, so I need to be able to move relatively quickly. Yeah.
That sounds so busy. That sounds like you. Good job to you for being able to do everything all at once.
Sometimes it's exhausting, and I hate getting sick. I'm really
goodness,
stubborn.
I can imagine. Yeah,
I'm a really stubborn person, so don't like being sick. My brain doesn't like it, but every now and then when you do get sick, you do have to have time out.
But you've mentioned teaching, and I have and I'm curious now, which you teach at the University of Sydney, correct?
Yeah.
And I hear you enjoy it immensely.
I love it.
How do you manage to do it and still run a business that's more successful by the year?
I don't know. Will? I think I read somewhere once that if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. It's a great quote. And I think that for those sorts of things, when you love it, you make time, you do it, you've got the energy to do it, you just drive on, so yeah.
That's
sorry,
great.
I can't remember if that answered your question or not.
Well, yes, you did, but and
sorry, I got interrupted halfway through.
No, it's fine. But it's fascinating to hear, and quite frankly amazing to hear that you love what you do, and you're able to work on your professional and personal development, and run a business, and be able to teach students and all of that. I'm curious, how did you find out about Clockify specifically?
I can't remember what point it was, but I needed, particularly with I was using my calendar to try and track the hours that I was doing for people, and then I needed to, if I was working on a particular project or a particular task, they wanted to know how much time was I spending on publicity versus how much time I was doing on the website or social media. And so I played with little apps for a while actually, it was just on my iPad back when I started. And then I did just sat there on Google one day and sort of like Googled the top 10 and it came up. And so I actually did the free version at first. And so I could export that information to help me invoice. And then over time, all the updates to it, I pay for Pro because it is an absolute time saver. It does everything someone like me needs in terms of reporting to my clients, to invoicing, to things like when I'm covering some expenses. Oh my God, I just love it. And I can switch on and off, so the little app can, I think that's what I was looking for, was something that could say, at the moment, I'm working on an email marketing campaign. I log that off and I'm working on a website. Or if a client says to me, I've got $2,000 on this campaign, you have to track that as a project to make sure you don't go over budget. So, I put those into the app and do that. I have another client that says, my budget for the month is, $1,000. So, I have to do all of his work within that. And I love the alerts it sends me, your 25%, your 50, your 75, whatever that I've set up. So I know I can keep to their budget, not go over time, but also, the publishers and distributors are looking for that. They need to also report back to those that are in charge, which these days is often the financial people. So they need to be able to show when they have me or RM marketing services, if they're, using me for outsourcing. Generally, they just say Rachael McDiarmid because that's how I'm known. I have to be able to, I can do reports on what percentage I'm doing on things. When I invoice them, they've got the choice to say, what it was it a campaign? Like if I've set it up by a campaign, what the tasks were, so they can track all of that. And they can put that in their budget, so I work to those client needs. It's so flexible. So, yeah. And once it started, when it was doing invoicing, I can't believe I used to do it. Like I used to go through my calendar. I did 2 hours here. I did 3 hours here, and add them all up. And
goodness.
But because I wasn't going to pay a huge amount of money for some accounting app.
Yeah,
I
that makes
didn't need
sense.
it. Yeah. So I just love it. It's just every time I look at it, there's something new, and I go, oh, where did that come from?
We're always updating it. You watch. But now I'm curious, what was it that made you stick with Clockify? Like, what was the thing that that hooked you and then that convinced you to stay?
Okay, there was a couple of things actually. It wasn't just one thing. Being able to round up. That was important. Being able to invoice by that project or by that task. Running invoices was when that sort of came in as a feature. And I can do, I can customize, all my invoices to all my different clients because they all want different things on them. I might be a purchase order number. I may have to put, different people that need to see it. But it was the invoicing that once, and then managing the project by time. So I think all of those together, I was prepared to pay because, I had to sit there trying to work up, do I put it as I worked 3 hours and 22, minutes on something, or do I put 3 hours and 3.5? There's certain, if efficiency and being able to produce invoices really quickly. And then the reports, like being able, I send a timesheet out, I send an invoice out, they can ask me for anything and I can run something in Clockify. Like I just found it essential for what I do as a freelancer, or a, sole trader or whatever, but for what I do for a for my job is, I don't know what I'd do without it. I really don't.
I mean, it sounds great. Well, Are there any other features? Like I know you mentioned invoicing, you mentioned projects
Mm,
and everything
mhm.
else that
There's the
Clockify
expenses, yeah.
offers. Yeah, expenses.
Mm,
Absolutely. Are there
mm.
any other features that you use the most, and why? With timing and everything.
Um, well, I use tags and projects.
Mm-hmm.
They're on pretty much everything that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're probably the main things, and the reports, so I pretty much use it everything now in it. But because
That makes sense.
I'm only one person, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't I don't need to allocate to staff, and I don't need to do all of those sorts of things or have an approval process through what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to think if there's anything on there that I don't actually use. I think it's
We
pretty
do have a
much.
kiosk app. We do have a kiosk app, where clock in, clock out.
Hmm.
Don't know how you I don't know how useful that would be, but it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, well, with the app, so you're talking about the app that I have on the computer.
Yeah,
So I have it on my Mac, and so
yeah,
like it's on all day, and putting on and off on my Mac. I'm using it all the time.
that's great.
And and also I've made it that I have to put definitions in there.
Hmm.
But also because some of my clients might, like say teaching, you have different rates depending on what you're doing. Because if you're
Hmm.
marking assignments versus teaching, and so you have to put all of that information behind the scenes at the beginning. I think that's the thing. As long as I've set up my projects right and for my clients, the only thing, and I don't think it's there yet, but maybe it's coming, is if I'm doing a consult and I raise an invoice, I'd love to do the credit card transaction on it
Hmm. I
rather than
can't.
going outside of it. So, but that was the most recent one that I've loved, when tracking the invoices and when they've actually been paid, and like highlighting what hasn't, as being able to look on screen and go, oh, okay, I need to chase that.
Hmm.
Um, that I really loved all of the invoicing developments that have been done. Knowing how long it took, because I was doing these manually in Excel. I raised an
Goodness.
invoice on this date, but when did I actually get paid? My terms are 14 days. When did I actually get paid? So,
Yeah,
I
that would
find
be a
that
lot.
that's,
Yeah, that'd be a lot easier to follow, be able to follow,
mm,
especially with working with so many people. Yeah, to be able to follow
yeah.
that so closely. Um,
Yeah, I don't know if that's available as an export yet. I have to check.
I can't say anything about that.
No, but those sorts of things. It's just, I think it's listening to users to see how they can keep staying in the app. And
Hmm.
it's a good affordable product. It really is. And every time that there's a new release or something, I go, oh yay, isn't this exciting? So it's
There's always
really,
something new happening.
it's saved my sanity, I think, particularly if you've got
Oh, that's
lots of
great.
clients.
Hmm.
So the outsourced clients and then the consults on
Uh-huh.
top, and there's different rates for things. So having to manage that and invoicing, is a challenge. So
I, I can imagine
it's
how challenging that would be. Yeah, it's the
yeah,
dual
yeah,
app.
it is. It is. It's really, and it's easy to use. And I think there was something really early on. I thought customer service was really good. I had to ask a question because something wasn't appearing on a report, and it was only because I had not filled in a particular part when I
Hmm.
set up a new project. And the customer service was excellent. So, and they just made sure I knew what I was doing, and I've never made that mistake again. So those sorts of things also make it pleasant to work with. Like, it's not like, you roll your eyes and go, oh, I'm paying how much? It's like, oh, this is so good.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. Are
No,
there
it's
any other
good.
rewarding options or solutions that Clockify provides that you'd like to share? Anything that you haven't already? Anything
Um,
that
no,
maybe contributes to the overall
I
growth?
I do think that I do think the message needs to get out to a lot more people that are doing, like that are freelancers, to be
Hmm.
able to sort of say, you can do all of this in an app that's, affordable, particularly if you're doing client work, and be able to run all of these things really efficiently. It saves you time, it's productive,
Hmm.
it's easy to use. So, I think that, and it keeps being developed in line with what we all need. So I do feel like, I mean, I was speaking to someone the other day who is starting up their own business, and they were looking at
Good
sort
for
of
them.
doing, working with lots of different people. And I said to
Hmm.
them, you've got to get this app. It'll make your life so much easier to be able
Start off
to
fresh.
invoice and
Yeah.
reports, and it's value for money. Just go out and do it. And so it's one of those things. I think that particularly in our industry, we love to share things that have been lifesavers, or have helped save us money or time. And I think we do have a tendency to share across. Oh, I'm using this for a CRM, or I'm using this for a, this sort of software, or I'm using this for marketing. I'm using this. So I think word of mouth is really, really good. It's like books. Word of mouth is what sells the
Hmm.
books.
True.
um, and so I feel like this is something that also needs that get the message
Mhm.
out, because it's a really good platform to use.
So it's safe to say you'd recommend Clockify to
I would
everyone.
recommend Clockify. I think that, considering that I've been on it for a few years now, and every update has
Has been
it puts a smile on
beneficial.
my face.
That's great. That's
Puts,
fantastic. It's fantastic to hear. In your experience, what are the top three most what are the top three most desired skills for someone to become successful in outsourcing and being a
you want me
consulting
to give you
specialist?
trade secrets? You want me to give you trade? I think knowledge, flexibility,
Hmm.
and also reputation. Like, I'm really lucky. I've got a really good reputation. Probably
Hmm.
because my
That's
first
good.
mentor in the trade actually said to me, "Never make an enemy in the trade,
Hmm.
because on your way up, you'll pass them on your way down."
Hmm.
But essentially, those sorts of things have been, I think knowing what you do a good job, do it well, um,
Hmm.
and get on with it. Don't faff about. Give people what they need.
Hmm.
So, as long as you know what you're doing. There's a lot of
Oh,
people
that's
that
good.
don't know what they're doing. They think they do, but they don't.
Now that we all have to start somewhere. Uh, But that leads into one of my other questions on this. What are some challenges that maybe new publishers or new consultants might face getting into this line of work?
Mm, payment, um, terms. I think that, um, it's for me. I'm lucky because I've been doing it for a long time, so I have
Mhm.
regular clients. I have people that are approaching me all the time, and I guess they have to find their niche and find those ones and use their network. And just, you don't need to have like hundreds of people. You need to just have really good,
Mhm.
consistent ones that pay on time, give you interesting work, um, and that are nice to work with.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think if people were getting into that to find their niche, and where they can add value, I think they need to be able to add value, or save time for people, or money. Like,
Mhm.
particularly for a publisher, they're trying to find ways to get the work done.
Mhm.
And outsourcing is a good solution in those sorts of things. But I love the consulting work too. It's fun, and coaching, because every project is different. So
Heck yeah.
you just got to
I
have fingers in lots of pies, and you've got to be able to manage your time really well. And at the end of the day, even though you're
Clockify.
working on all these projects, you've still got to run a business. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got to, you've got to be able to have your admin.
Uh-huh.
You've got to manage your time,
Yeah.
and you've got to remember that there will be things that you have to do,
Mhm.
that aren't client work. It's just business.
Mhm.
So, and I like to think that, particularly in our trade, it's a nice industry to work in.
Mhm.
um, and if people are, good at what they do, they're nice and pleasant to work with. It makes a difference. So, yeah. And there's a lot of nice people.
That's good. I mean, uh, best best tips to give to new and upcoming publishers, I guess. Um,
No, do your research.
there you
You
go.
know, your gut instinct only gets you so far.
Hmm.
Manage your supply chain really well and give really good customer service, because people remember when you don't.
Yeah.
And I think for publishers generally, publish what people want to read,
Oh,
as
definitely.
well.
Wow.
And price it right, get it out in the supply chain at the right time. But there's so many
Hmm.
people that don't do any research. Actually, the worst thing for me as a business is
Hmm.
when people have come to me and they said, "Oh, hi Rachel, I've been recommended to you by blah blah blah. I've just published a book," and
Hmm.
that's for me the killer words. It's like you've just published, and they said, "I'm looking for marketing and publicity," and sitting there going, "You should have been starting this ages ago."
Hmm.
So you have to coach them through what they can do now. So I think that for people, depending on where they are in the industry, if they're a
Hmm.
new press, they should know what they're doing. But for new authors, get the right advice and
Hmm.
sort of read the books and do the Masters of Publishing at University of Sydney. It's a great course. Best unit is book marketing and so on.
Keep that in mind, viewers.
And so, but the amount of people that don't do anything, and then say, I've
Hmm.
just printed 20,000 copies or 10,000 copies, and you go, oh my God, the bestseller last year only sold that many. Did you not do any research? They've
Is
got to
that a
get the right
common
advice.
thing? Is that a
It
common thing that
happens. It
happens?
happens when people have an ego and they think that
Oh,
they can sell a book, without doing any research on the price point, on the market, on the
oh
supply
boy.
chain. Getting a distributor is huge. So,
Hmm.
um, I've been called the killer of dreams because I will actually say to people, that, how many were you planning to print? But there are tools in the industry for them to get information
Hmm.
on, what statistics on sell through, but
Hmm.
that just costs money. And so, but I'd rather have a client pay a few $100s or more to get a
Hmm.
report and save thousands or tens of thousands later on.
That
But yeah,
makes
there's
a lot
people
of
that,
sense. Yeah.
they just go out and do it. Great if you've got a network, but if you don't, um,
Hmm.
I had someone once send me a marketing plan for how they were going to sell 100,000 copies of a particular book, without having any understanding in the Australian market of how many copies that is and what sort of books reach that in the first place. So,
Oh, wow.
it's sort of people people believe a lot in their product,
Well,
and
yeah,
it's not
I can
always
see
the
that.
right belief.
Yeah.
you know. So yes, that's where I come in. I can sort of guide them through it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could imagine. Yeah, when you make
Mhm.
something that is your baby and then you want to see that
Yeah.
succeed in some way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then you come to me and say, I don't have a distributor yet. And you go, oh my goodness, how do I get it in the Christmas catalogs? Then it's November. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. The industry doesn't work that way. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the difference. I've got such variety because I've got my outsourcing work, which is my bread and butter, the
mhm.
coaching work on top of that, and the consulting. So I get to see lots of variety, you know, lots of
Cool.
fingers in lots of pies. It's really cool.
That's great. Do you have any plans for the future? Anything special that's coming up that you'd like to mention? Allude to any new things?
No, no, I guess the main thing that I've just started offering is that a lot of publishers have authors that aren't social media or digital savvy. And so I'm
Hmm.
doing some sort of coaching and special things with them. And I partner with different people within the industry for products and
Hmm.
services that they might offer.
Hmm.
So it's sort of like, um, and I guess for those people that are putting on industry events, like make
Hmm.
sure that you use the right, people in the industry to talk to. And, I do workshops and I do presentations as well. So those things are always fun. But yeah, I mean, in the meantime, I'm enjoying life in the Blue Mountains. So it's such a change from Sydney. So I've got that lovely work-life balance and fresh air these days.
That's
I do have
fantastic.
work-life balance, even though with all of this work, I have a dog that demands being, going for a walk and love going into the gardens, and so got to have
That's
both.
great.
Got to have fun as well. Can't be all serious.
True. Well, I mean, thank you for this
That's
fantastic
all right.
chat. This was
Oh,
great to
I hope you
sit
can
down.
use it.
Definitely. I'm thinking already about my next book. Um,
And who are you going to come to before you do it?
you are the number one person I'm thinking about. So
Do we see the Clockify guide to something, or the cake.com guide to
oh,
something?
definitely an insider's look into how Clockify helps the general public. What are some
Which will be
what are
giving away free, as on the website for potential
yes.
customers.
That could work. That's a great business model. How are there any other socials where our viewers can reach out to you, find you, read up on you, look for this
Oh, it's so funny because I'm on
a famed
LinkedIn is my
course?
best. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn is probably the best because I'm so busy doing everyone else's socials. I sometimes forget to do my own. It's like my website. It's sort of like, oh, have I updated my website? Because I'm too busy updating everyone else's.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm on, the main things. But LinkedIn is the best way. And also there's recommendations and endorsements and things like that on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn, and that people can see, so they know it's just not me talking. It's like, people like working with me, which is good because I like working with them too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, LinkedIn's the best professionally.
That's great. Last but not least, is there anything you'd like to share? Like any little more sprinklings of knowledge little nuggets of knowledge that you'd like to leave with us?
Oh, hadn't really thought about something like that. Yes, read more books.
You're gonna have viewers
Reading
read
is a
more
great
books.
pastime. And make sure you always support your local bookshop and your local library. So, I'm very grateful to my local library when I was a kid. They happened to be just
Same.
opposite where my mum worked. So, if you can, develop a love of reading, doesn't matter what you read, like for you to read romance, or if, science fiction, or I love YA. I'm,
Me
in my
too.
50s and I love YA,
Oh my
you
God,
know.
me too. All I
Yeah,
read
my
when I
my
at
kid,
the library.
my students love it that I did his photo. Sorry, Sarah J. Maas came to Sydney, and
Mhm.
she needed a thank you sign because she'd won the Goodreads for whatever book, Throne of Glass series that she won it for. That's the best book in that genre that year. She needed a thank you sign. I think that's no, sorry, she needed it for Australian fans that were coming to something that she was going to. And then she
Mhm.
used it on Goodreads.
Oh, that's
And she used
great.
it twice across different years. And I showed my students that I did that side, and they all just go,
Oh,
oh,
that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
SJM, that's all, what we say.
Mhm.
But it was so funny because I worked in academic and scholarly division, not in the trade division or anything, but I just did that side. So they all think I'm down with the kids. I think that was from a line from Twilight or something. But
Oh goodness.
yeah. But that sort of thing is good. I need to be on, know what they're reading. But
Mhm.
I think if people share what they're reading too, um,
Mhm. Definitely,
and
yeah.
spread the word of some good books that they've read.
Oh, I could
But
go
yeah,
on forever about the type of books that I read and like some good like recommendations.
if you read, have you read The Fourth Wing?
No, but I've heard about
It's
it.
number one in Australia, Rebecca Yarros. But and actually, I think it's number one most places. But yeah, dragons, and
I'll
I think
definitely
that the
take a look.
tagline is you have to graduate or die is the
Oh,
tagline. So
interesting.
that's enough to get you going. But
Uh,
yes,
I
a good one.
there's quickly to tag onto this before we
Uh,
finish a
yeah.
great because you mentioned that it reminds me of a 3 book series with the first book called the Summoning about a young adult who finds out she's a necromancer and now she has to figure
Oh
out how
yes,
to deal with
yeah,
that. Yeah, it's
yeah,
I forgot
yeah,
the author's name, but it's a fantastic series.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. I don't know that one. Um, I do love, like when people sort of share that love, like you sit there and I put on my Goodreads to be read list. So it might be like a few years later, but eventually I get through it.
That's fantastic. But we're gonna stop here. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to
Oh,
us. You're
thank
such
you
a
for contacting
fantastic
me.
person. Yeah, definitely.
And it was good just to have a chat, because I think if things off the cuff, are better than me sitting there and trying to write something. So
Oh yeah,
it's good.
definitely. Please enjoy the fresh mountain air.
Yes, well, I'm going to have dinner now, so you enjoy your day.
Oh, definitely. And I hope you have a great rest of your day too.
Okay, thank you.
Goodbye.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for watching our new episode. Be sure to check out our social media profiles and subscribe to our channel for more content just like this.